This is the part of the chapter that I'd really like you to focus on, paying attention to these kind of different strategies that you can use in your classroom. It first talks about two approaches for instruction of students, either remediation or compensation. Remediation is almost kind of like a reteach, where you go back and you teach the student things that they had missed. And then compensation is giving the extra assistance and extra help. Really pay close attention to that compensation to make sure that you're understanding that, and that might be something on the quiz. They use a compensation to help bypass the weaknesses and work through the student that way. Teaching basic skills, reading, handwriting, spelling, written expression, math. These are usually the areas that you would find students with a learning disability in, and then trying to find ways to help them and tools to help them overcome that and what they need. The text starts on page 182 talking about these basic skills, like providing prompts to students to help them. And then it goes into reading and talking about word recognition and different kind code emphasis approach, like phonics, and meaning inferences approach is more of the whole language, reading the words all together. Phonological awareness and reading fluency. This is all on page 182 and 183, and then goes on into 184, talking about each of these types of reading. So there's two main categories in reading. You're either coding a word or you're trying to comprehend it. Lower elementary grades, K1 and 2, really work on identifying words, and then end of 2, 3, 4, all the way up, you are getting information from your reading. Your comprehension is really important. So teachers usually test for being able word recognition, which is accuracy, fluency, how quick they're reading and how smooth they're reading, and then their comprehension, how well they're understanding. So when you're teaching reading, there's kind of a couple of different ways to approach teaching reading. So the code emphasis approach is the phonics way, where you decode the words, and then you also mash in high frequency words. So if you've seen a teacher using word families, all the at words, bat, cat, rat, those are all, that's part of code emphasis or phonics. Meaning emphasis is looking things at the whole language, so learning words as a whole and reading books as a whole and thinking kind of, I feel like more of a memorization approach. And then the phonological awareness goes in with the code emphasis, being able to find their phonics. And a thing that reading fluency is how smooth they're reading, how quick they're reading. And with these reading, different students learn different ways. Some do better with phonics, some do better with the whole language approach of learning. And these also include high frequency. The book mentions the Dolch Basic Sight Words List. We use that at school. My son is in kindergarten, and they use those words, sight reading words too. And students with learning disabilities in reading, sometimes they're able to memorize those sight words, and so that's how they can help them with their reading. The book goes on page 184, 185, talking a lot about different ways to help strategies in reading, advanced organizers that it talks about, using peer tutors, provide high interest, low vocabulary, make audio recordings. So we, don't have as many maybe tape recorders, but you can use iPods and different things on computer recordings. Students that have a reading disability really do well from listening to someone read aloud. So not just your lessons can be on tape, but books can be on tape. The notes that they can hear from class. Maybe read aloud their test and let them hear it on tape. And then it provides them being able to hear it more than once. Of course, the book talks about using computer software to increase reading fluency. Repeated readings, work on having them read things several times over and over again to help with their reading fluency and learning those words. Another strategy is the SQ3R method, the survey, question, read, recite, and review. That one is good for expository text, for nonfiction when they're trying to comprehend that. They have reciprocal teaching, and that involves summarizing, asking questions, clarifying, making predictions. It does not include anything about rereading. And then the text goes into talk about handwriting, spelling, written expression, and help students who are poor spellers begin to use the dictionary as an aid. The book also talks about using cursive writing. I see that with my dyslexia students. Their teacher that they are pulled into for their class, they learn cursive because it's smooth and it goes easier for their brain to make connections with. So if you have a student that's struggling with reading or writing, you may start teaching them cursive, and it can help. That's one strategy. Written expressions is the process of putting one's thoughts down on paper. If they're having a hard time with that, the book talked about providing prompts or ideas. On page 186 towards the bottom, it gives a whole list of ideas. This text is really good and handy to use. I use several of these things with all of my students, with having the My Words booklet for high frequency words. We have students, after they take their spelling test, any words that they miss, or any of the high frequency words from the Dolch list, they'll write them in their My Words. And as a teacher, I also keep those words, and if a student does have an accommodation for struggling with spelling, you can provide them that word list when they take standardized tests, like STAR for Texas. You can provide them with that accommodation, so then they're not having to worry about spelling. And then it talks about using the test method, provide handwriting prompts, review rules of capitalization, punctuation. You can provide them with these accommodations if they're using them. Instructional tape for practice high frequency, irregular spelling, provide many different opportunities to practice written expression. The text also talks about how students with learning disabilities may have a hard time paying attention. So keeping the students engaged and focused is really important. And in math, you can do that with hands-on math lessons, hands-on manipulatives. If they're learning multiplication, maybe they need to have the multiplication chart, or providing them with fraction strips. Just the visual cues can help keep them focused, but then also can give them what they need to be successful. And remember, if they're using them in your classroom and it's working as success, then a lot of times they can use those same strategies on a test and accommodate them for a test. Like if you give oral, like read them the test, you oral administrate the worksheets that you're doing, then if that's working well, then they can have that on the STAR test. They can have it read to them aloud. So just be thinking about, as a teacher, what accommodations are you providing the student, and then it can help them for many years, and they can always have those accommodations. So 2 things in math: computation and then reasoning. Computation, doing the math; reasoning is making sense, putting the skills to solve the problems. And then strategies for math: add visual prompts like we talked about, using paper that has been marked off in squares or giving them place to show their thinking. Include only a few problems per page. And really, in a lot of things, you could shorten assignments. I do that even with students. And if I'm trying to build stamina, then I don't always, but like if I notice on a sheet that the same type of question is asked twice, they only need to solve it once, and that helps them out. Students with learning disabilities can feel bogged down because things take so long to do, and so if you're able to shorten it, then it can help them feel a little bit more confident. Work toward automatic recall of number of facts. Learning your multiplication facts, that can be very challenging. Using real-world situations for word problems, making it relevant to them, helping them have more interest. identify keywords that are often signal the different operations. We do that a lot in class to talk about like total or in all means addition. Groups, talking about in multiplication, or if we take away or leave for subtraction. So really pinpointing those. I provide also strategies in math on my work to help students in the story word problems to circle what's important, circle the information that they need, underline the question, and mark out any extra information. Then it helps them just be looking at the important parts. So we practice a lot with that. And then reading assignments and content areas goes through about modifying content instruction. And this is on page 189. And it will talk about reducing the reading requirement, maybe to help them use substitute material written on a lower reading level. I would be very careful with that in that maybe their independent reading might be a lower reading level, but any of your instruction, if they are being tested on your current grade level, then if you're reading lower reading levels, that's really considered a modification. So I'd be careful and make sure that you're accommodating and maybe guiding them in the grade level reading so that they're able to see what grade level reading material looks like. Present the information through another medium, so maybe through technology or reading it to them instead of them having to read things to themselves into a visual way. Movies, videotapes. Written assignments and exams, reduce the length of those, allow use of word processor, being able to type it, and they can listen to things, providing a dictionary, their own personal word list, an audio recorded of it, respond through a medium other than writing. So maybe they can do things where they can record them talking, or maybe make an iMovie off of an iPad instead of having to handwrite their writing. In math, using calculators as an aid, fact tables is very common. I think manipulatives, if they need to use counters, or if they need to use fraction strips, a clock to actually move the hands when they're trying to tell time. So just overall in this chapter, it gives some really great strategies to use with all students. And even if a student doesn't have a learning disability, but maybe they're struggling in a certain area, you can use these strategies to help them out. I use the closed reading to help students take notes a lot of times when we're doing things together in class, when we're reading, or providing them in math with the hands-on materials to help them understand the concept before they're having to do the paper pencil. So this is a really good chapter to just keep in mind. Hopefully some of the hints I gave you throughout here can help with the quizzes. If you have any question, please let me know. Thank you.